Welcome to the Power Forward Pod, hosted by the Power Forward Group Financial Advisory Team, where we believe dialogues are better than monologues, thoughts are meant to be challenged, sound boxes are the enemy, and change is the only constant. I'm Ruvin Levavi. This is Bobby Kaslander.
How's it going, Ruvin?
Bobby's the best athlete on the PFG team.
Not saying much, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, no, but Bobby,
No,
Bobby is really financial advisor extraordinaire. Athlete on the PFG team isn't hard. Financial advisor extraordinaire is another thing. So I know, Bobby, you want to talk about one of your favorite authors and his newest book, which I think is top on your financial advisory books, right?
It's definitely up there. Yeah, Morgan Housel. For those that don't know who he is, he's the author of. He's written 2 other books: Psychology of Money, Same as Ever. This was his 3rd book that came out. The Art of Spending Money, which I think we'll definitely dive into today. One of my, I'd probably put that as my 2nd favorite of his 3.
Okay, what's your favorite?
I think The Psychology of Money was fantastic, well written. Really dives into obviously the psychology of money, why people do certain things, why they spend. Yeah, I mean, this book was kind of a little bit of a spin-off off that, but focusing more on the spending habits of people and why they do certain things.
Right. So for me, I actually like Same as Ever was like the top book. And
that was your favorite, yeah.
And 3 years written for me personally. But I actually think this book for our clients is the most important of the 3. And I think from a usefulness perspective and to think about like the way you live and the way our clients live their financial lives, to me, this would be top of the list. In fact, after reading this, if I think about any book I'd want our clients to read, like the number 1 book, you become a member of PFG, I think this is it. This is where it begins.
Yeah. I think this and Psychology of Money are both fantastic. I mean, what this book does is it really explores the relationship between money and happiness, right? I think, there's so much misconception out there that, more money will lead to more happiness. And while, Morgan Housel kind of explores that relationship, yes, there is some truth to that, but I think the real happiness and true ingredients of that comes from, loving relationships, quality time with family and friends, making sure you have, good health, 8 hours of sleep, and really providing a legacy and just being a part of something bigger than yourself. So while money isn't necessarily the be-all, end-all, it can be a tool, if used correctly, to help you reach happiness.
Right. So I always heard more money, more problems. No, that's just how I grew up. Yeah. That was the music. That was cool music. Yeah. But I think it's something we all know, right? If you ask anybody in the street, if you say, hey, does money create happiness? I think the answer at first is money can result in happiness, but I don't know if it creates happiness. I think I find it so interesting that I think we all know that at some level, but sometimes it's important to like really spend time thinking about it and really delve into thoughts behind what your purpose is, and then how can money leverage that and amplify that. And I think money can be a great amplifier, which is one of the big points Morgan Housel makes in his book. But when we talk to clients, like, is their main thing purpose-driven when we talk about money? Do you get that right off the bat? Do you get purpose-driven results?
So what do you mean by that? Can you elaborate a little bit? Yeah.
Yeah. So, when we meet with a client, when we do a financial planning meeting, on average, everybody's different. When we do a financial planning meeting, those meetings tend to lead with like what they want their money to do for them on a personal level? Like where do we see most of the action?
With clients, it's. I think it's more based around. I think some clients, yes, like some are focusing on, how can I start saving, investing more to, help me retire early, put my kids through college, taking care of just, everyday expenses as well. So yeah, I mean, every client's a little bit different in that.
Right. So I think that's right. I think we hear about like what the money can do for them, but I think at the same time, it's important for us to ask the right questions and delve a little bit deeper, and ask like get to these purpose questions that Morgan talks about a lot. And I think that's why, in some ways, when I think about the title of the book, what I love about the title is called "The Art of Spending Money." Right. And so many of our meetings and interactions with clients. As an advisor, we expect to be able to give an answer, provide an answer, right? If you're doing this with X account, this is exactly how many dollars you want in that account. But dollars in an account without a reason for dollars in the account, the purpose behind putting dollars in the account is, to Morgan's point, kind of meaningless and dangerous in some ways if we don't handle it directly. So I like the idea of art, right? So the art, art can be clean, art can be ugly. Yeah. You look at a Van Gogh, I don't know what I'm looking at, right? But people call it art, right? Yeah. So it's about what you're trying to convey, not to necessarily your audience, but to yourself. And I think we have to get better at having these conversations.
Absolutely. And I love how Morgan really describes this as the art, right? Because there's no, and I listened to a podcast with Morgan.
I love how you say his name more, like you're his best friend because you like him so much.
right before the book came out. And, there really is no science to spending money, right? There's no set formula. Everybody can spend money in a way that will make them happier, right? There's no universal formula. Things that make myself happy and things I'll spend money on might seem insane or foreign to you, and vice versa, right? And I know that's
now I got to ask.
I know it's definitely true when I see all my wife's Amazon packages, but
okay.
But yeah.
So you just threw her under the bus, but for you, what's the most insane?
I had to throw that in there.
What's like when you say insane? Like, I might think it's insane. What do you think that is? What would that be?
Well, some people prefer to spend on nice restaurants, right? They like the quality of the food, they like the atmosphere. Others prefer, when they go on, vacations, they prefer to fly maybe first class or business class. They want to stay at very nice hotels because it's more about the experience for them. Others, maybe don't care so much about that, but they'll spend on other things.
I see you're still avoiding the question though about yourself. Are you a car guy, Bobby?
You know what? I do like cars.
Okay.
I'm not in a position yet where I can start purchasing any car I'd like to, but maybe at some point. But I do like cars.
What's your favorite car? What do you like?
You're going to start judging me for this. I'm a big,
not me, the audience.
I'm a big Ferrari guy. Love Ferraris.
It's got to be red now.
Yeah, not red.
Okay.
I think more of either like a black or white one.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, I don't know. What about you? What do you like to spend on? What's your kind of guilty pleasure?
Probably, I don't know, vacations, skiing, and like hockey. Things I really enjoy at a very passionate level. Like to me, I don't want to count the dollars when I do those things.
Yeah.
I think the experience around it is a lot of what I work for and a lot of what I think about. And I want to just get the best out of that. And when I was a kid growing up, like when I go skiing, and then when I was in college, it was like, all right, I'll drive from school to the closest mountain, and I'm going to pick the mountain based on like the cost, right? Because that's what you're thinking about, right? It's about what's the cheapest ski ticket I can get at this time, and it's that one day experience. I need that quick hit, and I knew the quick hit I can afford. But now it's interesting to watch when I think about it. Now it's kind of all right. Part of the experience is not thinking about the dollar amount, right? It's not even tying it back to work.
And that's I think that's one of the highest purposes and value of money, right? You work so hard. You're putting all this time in doing mastering your craft. You want to be able to not have to worry or stress about some of these things, right? If you want to go take a vacation with your family, not worrying about what XYZ costs in doing it, right? That'll create such a great experience for you and just the peace of mind, right? So I think it's just money can provide you independence and freedom in that aspect, and that's, I think, the highest purpose of money.
Right. What I love is he terms some of these things so well. Some of these things we know. One of the terms I think he uses is social debt, and this idea of you almost owe responsibility sometimes in your own mind to show what money has provided for you. So like using the vacation example, like you spoke about experiential vacations. I talked about like I just want to ski and not think about the dollar amount, right? There's some places people like to go. I think that it's more about you want to hope somebody else sees you at those places, right? And then how that result makes you feel. And I think that's the anxiety sometimes that comes around.
Absolutely.
Like living the life of money.
Yeah. And I think, especially now, today's day and age, social media does it's one of the biggest drawbacks of social media, right? I think, you see people online doing this, that, you want to do that. You want to show off for people. And that kind of goes into the whole, utility versus status concept that Morgan touches on. Warren Buffett mentioned, people have an internal versus external scorecard, and it's much more important to really focus on the internal versus kind of the external side of it.
It's kind of crazy. I have a good friend I grew up with, smart, super smart. I grew up with him from high school, became an attorney, successful, got married, had some kids, and unfortunately a couple of years later his marriage blew up and his life kind of blew up. It's now back on track. And I remember having a conversation with him, and I grew up at a different age of social media than you did. We were just adjusting, we were just keeping up. I don't have TikTok on my phone; I was just catching up. But I remember
You're not on TikTok yet?
I'm not, and I wasn't on Instagram either at the time. And I remember him saying to me, when we were discussing when he was talking about what had gone wrong in his life at the time, and he was having these painful discussions. And one of the things that really stood out to me is he really felt, and he shared with me, that his family wasn't living the experience that some other families from his community that he grew up with were living. And I asked him more about that. I said, we're not going on these vacations. We're just not having that lifestyle. And at first I was like, oh, he means like, because I was so far off of it, he meant like that we're not carving out the time for ourselves. But when I spoke more, it was really about the image of those events. And it was like, oh wow, this is about how other people see me. It's not, but that wasn't like not taking anything away. That was really important at the time, right? There was some validation in there, but I think it becomes empty validation, right? It leaves you empty.
I think it's empty validation, exactly. That goes to the whole thing. Like, you need to stop. When it comes down to it, people don't really care as much as you think they do. And I think Morgan Housel touches on that. You got to be happy with what's inside, with what's going on, not focusing so much on what you don't have. And again, I think the whole social media thing, people think everything is perfect on social media. Social media doesn't show any of the bad. It doesn't show what people go through on a day-to-day struggle, what real life scenario is kind of going through. So social media paints this, fake reality that everybody just has this perfect life. And I think it's a little bit of a harmful thing to society, but it's a part of it.
Yeah, I was thinking about cars that I asked you about before. You sound like you love that Ferrari, right? So it's giving you something back. We have some clients who really think about cars, and you can tell when you're talking to them about it. Like, it's about the love of the car. It's something they've been looking at since childhood for whatever reason. It has to do with their background, and I think cars is a great example. Morgan Housel brings it up when he speaks. He says, when you see that cool Ferrari, look, on the road next to you. And, I've seen people even snap pictures of cars from their car while they're driving. You're not snapping a picture of the driver. You're snapping a picture of the car.
Of the car.
Right? And what you're doing in your brain is you're imagining yourself as the driver of the car and imagining everybody else is snapping a picture of you, the driver of the car. But you forget nobody's actually looking at the driver. The only
no one will actually even remember who was in it, right?
Exactly.
It's just like it's a split second thing. Yeah.
Right. But but on the other hand, like, if you love the car and something you're working for because it means something to you, it's driving that, some people love to drive. You're driving the car of your dreams. It's engineered perfectly.
Goes fast,
Goes fast, right? Although, like, I think a Tesla will go 0 to 60 like in 3 seconds today.
Yeah. I actually haven't driven one of those yet,
but yeah, I think it's really uncovering what it means to you. And I think that what Morgan's really saying is we all strive, right? Does money mean happiness? Money can provide things that can, result in happiness, but real happiness, if you look at mental health in any of these studies, real happiness is something that lasts, right? Something that you can take with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll read one of the quotes in the book that I think kind of alludes to what you're talking about, right? So every decision we make when spending money falls into one of two buckets, right? Are you spending money on something because it makes people think differently of you, like you more, be more impressed with you, maybe even jealous of you, or because it actually feeds your soul, right, and makes you happy? Morgan Housel admits, like, that's a tough balance, and it's a tough line to kind of find the balance between. There's a strong social pull towards kind of the former, but internally, I think what makes us most happy is doing things for utility and not for status.
Right, and he provides some real exercises you can do to kind of really think this out with yourself and your family, right? Yeah. The tombstone exercise is one. I remember as a kid, my mother came home once and she had heard it from a friend. She's like, okay. It's like 13 years old.
13 years old.
And I was the oldest. And she's like, and my mother loves to read obituaries. It's another thing. But she came home, she's like, oh, we should all talk at the Friday night table about like what we would say to each other at a funeral. And this is not a healthy thing.
Very morbid.
But there is some health in there if you do it at the right time, the right age, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell us what that is also?
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting. So Morgan Housel does this psychological exercise, a couple times a year. He'll bring this up to clients, and it's really an exercise to show what is most truly valuable in life and what's most important. So he suggests that people write down their desired obituary, or what would they want to have said on their tombstone, right? So it makes you really kind of reflect on how you want to be remembered and how you want people to really think the life that you lived, right? So I think what most people would probably write is, Ruvin was a devoted husband, fantastic father. He was there. He was loving, kind, generous, charitable. It won't say anything about, Ruvin had a massive beach house in the Hamptons, or he drives that Ferrari, right? So he uses this exercise because it'll be a reminder to tell people, like, this is how you want to live your life. Write these things down and live a life based around getting those things to be true about yourself. And I think it's a powerful exercise, and it shows you, right? Like the most valuable things in life are not material items.
Right, they're not the material things. Yeah. And I mean, in real time, I used to do estate planning as a big part of what I did as a practice. And when I thought of when you think about estate planning in law school, and you think about the idea of a will, you think my first reaction was material. It's like, okay, it's from the movies. It's like it's always in England, by the way. Like the old English guy gets out and he's reading, and everybody's standing there and waiting for him to read out the will and hoping they get, I want that, I want that house, I want that estate. But maybe I'm not working with the richest clients, or I'm not working with the right people, I guess, who would have an English magistrate read out their will. Yeah. But I've never had the experience, not once, of a client really thinking about, all right, let's add a schedule, and that's what it would be, a schedule to this document of who gets what item here and there, right? It's about, all right, I'm going to split it 3 ways, I'm going to split it 4 ways, and they don't speak about what it is, because it is everything, right? And it's the last thing that people are thinking about as a material thing when they're thinking about the last thing. Right. So when push comes to shove, I think our society is what drives a lot of that and a lot of our conversations. The other point he makes about what drives, and he speaks about athletes and what drives a lot of spending sometimes, is this feeling of really owing an actual debt, which I've experienced with some of our own clients and athletes as well. He made the point of speaking in front of the NBA rookie program, and he makes this super interesting point that a player raised his hand and said, "Hey, it's not that everybody says, all right, I made $40 million on my first contract, and now I blew the $40 million on cars and a mansion for myself." When you actually listen to most of the stories, it's, I bought my mom a house, right? And what that really is, when you delve deeper, it's the family experience. It's walking in their shoes. And what did that mean? Mom gave me so much, that we didn't have the life that she would have wanted to have, or we couldn't afford that. Right. This is me. I owe an actual, not monetary debt, but I owe an actual debt to mom. I had that with one player who, I asked him, how did you, how's it possible? People ask, how's it possible you were bankrupt so early in your career the first time around? And he said, nah, it's actually before I even got on the court. When I got my rookie deal, my mom opened a bunch of nail salons, thinking it would do excellently. And I gave her the funds to do that, because that was her dream. Right. And unfortunately, it didn't work out the way she wanted to work out. So it's not so simple. It's not so linear.
Yeah. And even bringing around similar stories, right? When I feel like they'll take care of all their friends, their cousins, all their family members. Do you think that's more of a feeling of obligation, or is it more like they also want to, or is it a little bit of both?
I think it could be both. I think that really is a great question. But I think that delves so much deeply into their emotional relationship with each other. And I think dangerously it's both. And I don't think it's a right or wrong reaction. Maybe right. Yeah. If that makes you feel good, and that's purpose driven, of always being able to buy mom a house, right? Then it probably is like that's what you want to do with your money. That's the result. However, and I think this is where science meets the art, right? What are we supposed to do as financial advisors in that spot? Our first job is say, hey, we have to make sure this contract pays for X, Y, and Z. It's going to get you to this point in your career. It's going to get you to retirement. It's enough money to do that. And then
what's left over? What's left over? What can we exactly? Yep.
Right. So it's kind of where the science and the art interconnect. And I think that's a beautiful role we can provide for clients.
Yeah, and I think that's clients come to us all the time. How much can I spend on this? What some clients feel guilty about spending on certain things, but that's our job, right? Our clients work so incredibly hard. We're never going to sit there and budget them to a T on every little thing they do. We have to help find the right balance of, protecting yourself for the future, taking care of your goals, taking care of your family, but at the same time, it's okay to spend on certain things, right? And it's okay to, overspend on certain areas. Right. Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you the hard questions, the ones you want to keep avoiding, Bobby.
All right, where are we going with this?
So one of the questions we ask a lot of our clients, one of the questions we need to ask ourselves is what does financial success look like, right? And that's such an amorphous question, right? What does financial success look like? So let's ask the second question for that. What do you want your financial success to impart? What is it like? What's a perfect? What will create real happiness, lasting happiness for you from financial success?
You think for myself?
From you personally?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me personally, I think financial success is being able to take care of my family first and foremost. So financially, all financial obligations, making sure that they're comfortable and they can live a life that they're happy with. Personally, I think that's the biggest thing for me. Not ever wanting to feel stressed about, small or medium-sized purchases. I don't want to have to go somewhere and have to really worry about, can I spend money on this or not? Vacations, other kind of experiences. Like I want to just be able to spend on certain things and not really have to worry about it from a stress standpoint. Being that I'm going to be a father for the first time coming up in March, that really, I feel like it's kind of given me a little bit of another jump start to wanting to work harder, wanting to, save more for the family and just making sure we're okay. God forbid I wasn't here and wasn't able to take care of them.
All right. Where do you think that comes from? Is that like, how did that develop, that feeling of purpose?
I would say from my parents. They always did a really good job of, my dad worked incredibly hard. So did my mom. They both had full-time jobs. And then my mom's full-time job became just taking care of the 4 kids. And I always felt like they did a really great job of just not necessarily giving us what we wanted, but providing for us in a way that was healthy and kind of what we needed at the time. So I want to be able to create that type of environment in my household.
For you, was that like the ability to play sports growing up? Was it playing football? Like what was that?
Yeah. I think, being able to play any sport I wanted to was very fortunate. My parents, were able to take us on, one big ski trip every single year. We would go out west once a year, which those memories will, be with me forever. So I want to be able to kind of take those experiences and have that with my, family as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. And I think so that's the art, right? And then the science is how do we structure a financial picture that supports that purpose-driven approach, right? And for just broad strokes right there, it's like, how do we compound funds? How do we create an investment account to purchase that house in the community that's going to allow my kids to play sports? How do we save enough for that vacation every year that provides us the ability to impart those experiences among each other? And then how do we protect, right? You spoke about what if I'm not here, right? How do we protect to ensure that my family can continue on in the way I want them to if I'm not if I'm not able to be there for those moments, but I want to be felt. That's the protection aspect. And you kind of covered it all, and then you can make the art touch it. And then you'll hear about family foundations, right? There's so many different versions of it, right? There's family foundations that will create a family charter of like what Carnegie Mellon's money is supposed to do, right? That's another version of it. How do we, there's just, and they're all purpose driven at the end of the day. They're not material driven.
Yeah. So can I ask you the same question or? Yeah.
Yeah. So,
what's the purpose for you, I guess, and what's financial success for you, I guess, at this point in your career, your life stage? Like what's?
Right. So I think a lot of similarities to, what you spoke to. I think for me, it's really a couple things. It was imparted to me by my grandparents and my parents. And the first is to have experiences together as a family that allow us to really be ourselves as a family, be ourselves individually together. And I think the importance of being able to do that in a family structure is those, when you take away, need, hunger, having to work in those times, so vacations, generally speaking, like when you're not worried about any day-to-day things, it allows you to connect. And when you're able to connect, it creates stability. And when you create stability and your kids see that and you impart that generationally, I think it provides a really healthy and functional support system for yourself to grow in the world. And then I think it's allowing choice and optionality to your kids, right? For me, it's very important that my kids get to choose some career path, some life path that they want to go on, using the skill set that we provide them to make that decision in a way that keeps up with our family's ethos and morals, but in a way that's their own. And all that's provided by the experiences we can provide, them, whether it's school, whether it's living in the right community, whether it's having the right friends, it's access. People say sometimes the most important thing to financial success is literally like where you live, what zip code you're in. And that's the very hard, that requires money to create, but it requires that community. So I think a lot of those things are, when I think about purpose-driven approach are really experiences, being able to create those experiences and replicate them for my family. And I think that's the beautiful thing about this country, frankly, that it provides an economic system that allows us to create that movement. There's a lot of things that are always stacked against us, but I think it's a beautiful thing that money allows us to do. So it's an amplifier, it creates leverage on those experiences.
Yeah. Bravo, Ruvin. That was a fantastic answer. Yeah. Very well thought out. And
And it could change, right?
No, that's
and
great.
It might change. Thank you, Bobby. But it might change. Like life will change, and flexibility allows for it. And so I heard Jeff Bezos, who's at the time, Elon Musk, maybe he was the richest man in the world, maybe the second richest man in the world. And he was asked a very similar question, and he said he really hadn't thought about it much, but when it really hit him in the head, like how about his family experiences and kind of what money provided for him, was he created his space program, Blue Origin, Blue Origin,
I think. Yeah.
And he remembers loading up he's going to take the first spacecraft flight for them. He remembers loading up into the spacecraft. And what meant so much to him was that his parents, his father and his stepfather and his mother, got to look at him and see him in the moment of what he created for himself and where he was taking things. And it was just the way he felt about himself. So you say, all right, the guy literally had enough money to create a spaceship that goes to space, but to him it was more about the emotional feeling that it created for him to be able to do that with his family in front of his loved ones. So I thought that was a beautiful rendition of wealth. So what takeaways for our listeners?
For the listeners, first and foremost, if you guys haven't read any of Morgan Housel's books, highly recommend. Psychology of Money was the first one, same as ever, Art of Spending Money. I think the biggest takeaway from this book is that spending really is an art. There's no science to it. You have to really dig deep and figure out like what really drives your happiness. Do you think having a big house is going to make you happy, or is it what's making you happy is the ability to then be able to host your friends and family and being more present with them over time. Here's another example, right? Like, is it going to Miami on vacation every year, or is it the fact that you have a week free of work, email, and just quality time with your family? So money can be, it can't always directly buy happiness. It can be a tool to help you get there. And it's all about just being happy inside. So you got to do it, find what makes you happy.
Right. Living. Money is the end game. Living a meaningful life and a purpose-driven life is the end game. So glad you all joined us this week for the Power Forward Pod. Check out the book, and we'd love to talk.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, everybody.